I was reading David Norbrook's essay on the historiography written about the English civil wars during the Civil War and after in the Cambridge Guide to Literature of the English Revolution. And it made me consider afresh the uses to which history is put. Because given the volatility of that time, the different sides, the different interests in the English civil wars had uh, significant motives to use history in a particular way to legitimate their own position. Obviously, the royalist side wished to use British history to emphasise the divine right of Charles I to be king, to have authority, to not be deposed, whereas those on parliamentarian side were keen to find some way of suggesting that the monarchy had become corrupted, or maybe was never legitimate, maybe against some kind of original English constitution that lay in the deep past that they were trying to recover, and so on. And we could see this in John Milton, the famous poet who wrote history of Britain. And um, his conclusion, interestingly enough, was that Britain had consistently proved itself to be not worthy of a republic, to just mess up each chance it had at attaining that. And his disillusionment at the restoration of Charles II really kind of only bolstered this feeling that he had. But the use of British history for present purposes has taken many twists and turns since. I'm thinking of E.P. Thompson's seminal work, The Making of the English Working Classes, of how he describes that some radicals around 1800 or so would dispute the legitimacy of the monarchy as they knew it. They would say that the Glorious Revolution of 1688, when William and Mary came over and kicked James II out, took hold of the throne, they would say that was entirely illegitimate. There hasn't been a legitimate authority in England since that point. And they would use this to justify their rebellious thought and activities. Some would go back even further, say William the Conqueror. Well, he stole the throne, he stole the crown. He had no legitimate authority, and neither do his descendants, which is basically all of the monarchs since. And these concerns seem extremely far from anyone's mind these days. As far as I know, apart from obviously some Republicans, but even for them, they're not trying to claim that the monarchy has an illegitimate line or something, as if there could be a legitimate line. They just want to get rid of the monarchy. Now, thinking of civil war, this has brought to mind some recent debate that I've seen around YouTube about whether there could be a civil war in Britain. Someone called David Betts, who's a military historian, I think at King's College, London, has been doing the rounds of various, maybe more right-wing video casts, giving interviews, outlining his position that Britain is in very real danger of civil war. Principally, I think, between the white population and Muslim populations. And he's a bit coy as to what he thinks of this, if he thinks it's a good thing. He sort of says, well, I'm just a fatalist about it, it's going to happen, and that's about it. Although I probably detect a certain anti-Muslim feeling behind it. But certainly it's being picked up on and maybe even encouraged by many on the right who seem to be looking forward to perhaps the chance for violent reaction against those that they perceive to be the cause of Britain's decline and downfall and so on. And we can see clearly here a certain narrative, a certain use of history rooted around this master code of mass immigration as being responsible for Britain's decline. But to me, this completely cuts out a number of very important factors: the deindustrialisation of Britain, Thatcher's closure of the mines, and so forth. These things don't really seem to feature in such groups' rhetoric as major parts of the narrative they wish to construct. And to me, I'm not blind to the, some of the ideologies of some Muslims. When I was at university, I had some Muslims express their desire for Sharia law for the UK to me. One said he thought that the apostasy laws in Saudi Arabia, the putting to death of converts to Christianity, were absolutely right. So I'm fully aware of what Islam can be used for. But to me, they're still such a small minority located in urban centres that really I don't think they would pose any significant threat, as it were, in the long term, even if they wanted to. It wouldn't be hard, as David Betts has outlined, for major urban centres to be surrounded, to have supplies cut off, and so forth. So I probably do see this as more of a scapegoat, in effect, that seeks to divert attention or isn't just ignorant of the dynamics of global capital, which I would agree with Robert Brenner's analysis that there has been a long downturn since the end of the golden post-war era, and that is endemic to capitalism's dynamics itself. It's I wouldn't want to say an inevitability, but certainly a strong tendency, which, you could say from my privileged position, where I have no skin in a number of games, I'm able to sit back and have a certain ironic view of history, a certain ironic view of how these things are playing out. That my anti-industrialism, my primitivism in some sense, is the result of a certain privilege, and that's something I have to take on the chin, I suppose. But what I think is important to do for anyone is to think, how are we using history? Are we using it in ways that really don't make much sense or are illegitimate? So when the working class, the lower middle class, clothe themselves in the heritage of the aristocracy, the Union Jack, when they start lauding great British heroes who were clearly very much not of the lower middle classes, is there something somewhat absurd about it that needs to be challenged and demystified? And what the solution is, what we should go on to, is something I can't say at this point. But as the American empire continues to crumble, what's left of Britain's prestige, if there's anything, continues to fade, we're going to need to be very careful about the uses we put history to, given the dire effects that could result in.